Last year, the day after Yom Kippur, following a slightly abnormal blood test, I went for an MRI scan. In truth, I thought nothing of it until the next morning when the specialist called me to say that the radiographer had identified 2 suspected tumours. One tumour had a 5 out of 5 likelihood of being cancer, and the other, I was told, was a 4 out of 5. He added that because I had not presented with normal symptoms, if it did turn out to be cancer, it might be quite aggressive. He concluded by telling me not to worry because the tests were only 88% accurate. Well, worry I did. The next 6 weeks were a whirlwind of painful biopsies, hurried medical research, and anxiously waiting. Fortunately, I was one of the lucky ones. It turned out to be nothing more than a cancer scare. Thinking back to those challenging 6 weeks, I cannot remember very much, except that I was incapable of hearing anything other than the loudest voice in my head. These High Holy Days, we've been focusing on Shema Kolenu, listening to the varied voices amongst us. As we approach this final hour of our Yamim Noraim, our days of awe, we want to acknowledge how the word awe can mean both wonder and utter fear, not least due to those painfully loud voices with which so many of us are living.
I too know that loud voice from my own experiences. We Jews love to answer a question with another question. If someone were to say, "Why do that?" the classic Jewish answer would be, "Why not?" And yet, when I was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder over 20 years ago that necessitated serious surgery to avoid it turning into breast cancer, I didn't want to ask, "Why me?" to which the Jewish answer would probably be, "Why not you?" Instead, the question which felt most appropriate as I traversed that almost cancer journey back then, and treatment for actual parotid gland cancer many years later, was the very first question in the Torah. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve had eaten of the tree of knowledge and hid from God, God asked Adam, "Ayeka, where are you?" This question puzzled the rabbis. Why ask it when God already knew the answer? The Hasidic response is that God wanted to give Adam a chance to own up, to be honest about where he was in his journey of growth. I learned from my journey through illness to try and listen beyond the noise of why me, why this, what next, to that deeper voice that asks, "Ayeka, where are you in this?" The response to the question, why has this happened to me, or why to my loved one, or why to this lovely member of the congregation? That response has helped me over the years to hear something deeper than the loudest voice in illness, depression, and loss. The great psychologist Carl Jung said something intriguing. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Jung argued that to understand the purpose of our lives and overcome the loud voice of what he called the persona, the mask that we present to the world, we have to look inward and listen. How appropriate for Yom Kippur.
So let's look into our hearts as we conclude Yizkor. One of the loudest voices in our hearts can be grief. The sheer finality of losing someone, even if expected, can turn our world upside down. In the Torah, when Jacob dies, this is what happens next. Vayipol Yosef al Pnei Aviv. Joseph collapses on his father's face, weeping upon him and kissing him a final goodbye. That same grief is found in the Psalms, where we encounter various distressed voices calling out to God, and each of those voices is heard, including the grieving spouse, because Karov Adonai lenishbarei lev. The psalmist tells us that God is close to the brokenhearted. The Israeli poet Zelda understood this, having lost in terribly quick succession her beloved mother and then her husband. She penned this poem about grief. I cried all night, O God, creator of the universe, is there a gentle death? I prayed all night for respite. Please, let there be rest within me. I thought all night. So many people live on in my aching chest. I need to light a candle for them. Lighting Yahrzeit candles and reciting the mourner's Kaddish can, of course, help. Yet nothing but time softens that constant voice of grief. And sometimes a death can be so tragic that the voice is overwhelming. When King David is told that his son has died, this is how he reacts. Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God that I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. Our hardest task as rabbis is sitting with bereaved parents. Words of comfort offer little balm. Instead, it is our quiet presence, a loving hug, a listening ear which can help devastated parents to know that we hear the voice that overwhelms them. Of course, it's not enough. It's never enough. But it's something. And it matters more than either of us can articulate.
Please take a moment to look at the memorial candle on the bema and also up at the Ner Tamid, our eternal light. Our synagogue was dedicated by David Wolfe Marks on the 27th of January 1842. Even then, he knew that for us to function as a community, we needed to be a beacon of light. A beacon of light shines both within the synagogue and outside of it. Jewish tradition says, Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. Each commandment lights a candle and the Torah is light. Our duty as members of this community is to support each other in bringing light into moments of darkness. When we or those we love are suffering, the pain blots out the light. That light can help in times of trouble and distress, so that the loud voices of upset, pain and bereavement don't overwhelm us. That is why the synagogue runs support groups for people who are bereaved, for those living with cancer or struggling with mental health difficulties, or caring for loved ones through difficult times. None of us knows when that loud voice of distress will come unbidden into our lives. For all those going through those times of trouble and distress, we hear you, just as we heed the call. Shema Kolenu, hear our voice.
An often silenced, sometimes unheard area where we are doing more to support our members is reaching out to those who are managing addictions. Rabbi Israel Salanter, the founder of the 19th century Mussar movement, which focused on Jewish ethics and mindfulness, once proclaimed that the loudest sound in the universe was the breaking of a destructive habit. A decade ago, having heard from too many of our members battling addictions, I made a commitment that each High Holy Days I would undertake a month of sobriety in solidarity with their struggles. Many of you have since joined me in what we call our dry holy days. Together, we seek to assure those battling an addiction that in this season of spiritual introspection and making new resolutions, they are not alone. If you're already in a program, taking things one day at a time, please know that your rabbis are around to support you in confidence. We'd love to study with you those Jewish texts which address addiction. Likewise, if you're on the threshold of accepting that loud voice in your head and you want to do something about it, please get in touch. We promise to support you every step of the way.
All of this is holy work. This morning we read the Holiness Code in Leviticus 19, the central part of the central book of the Torah, quite literally its heart. Towards the end it says this, "Mipnei seva takum v'chadata pnei zaken." You shall rise before the silver-haired and honour the face of the older person. Jewish tradition proclaims that older people matter. Their wisdom and knowledge are precious. Finding meaning in later life can be challenging, as can facing a life that's perhaps becoming more introspective. One voice says that we may be nearing the end, another that retirement shines with so many new possibilities. Our new West London course on living well in later life includes appreciation of healthy living and the joys of volunteering. The tapestry of life is woven together in ways that reveal new colours and strands at every stage. Rather than hearing the voice of endings, we want to amplify all the possibilities for beautiful experiences which deepen our appreciation for living in this beautiful world and the great strength of being part of a community.
A caring community must be a committed one. Twice in biblical times, a loud voice proclaimed the dawn of a new era and the renewal of communal life. The first was at Sinai, with Kol Shofar, the voice of the shofar, when our ancestors accepted not only the commandments between them and God, but also those between fellow Jews, including caring for the dying, rejoicing with newlyweds, visiting the sick, accompanying the lonely, and assisting those in need. To be a true Kehillah Kadosha, a holy congregation, all those commandments, both the faith-focused and the people-centered, must be given equal voice. Which brings me to the second transformative moment in Jewish history, the return of the exiles from Babylon. That long-anticipated moment included them laying a foundation stone for the beginning of the Second Temple, thereby heralding a new era of peace, prosperity, and renewed community. Those who remember the destruction of the First Temple wept loudly. Likewise, those who had never known freedom in their lives whooped with joy. Their sounds blended until all those present could not distinguish, and this is what it says in the book of Ezra, Kol Truat HaSimcha, the voice of youthful shouting, Le Kol B'chi Ha'am, from the sound of others weeping. Because together the people voiced Teruah Gedolah, a loud cry, and its voice was heard across the land.
Yet the Teruah is not the final sound of these high holy days. In our journey across these days of awe, we have sought to examine the words of the prayer, Shema Kolenu. We have listened and hopefully been heard. Fittingly, the prayer concludes with optimism. Turn us back to you, eternal, and we shall return. Renew our days as of old. The great Rav Kook said he wanted to renew the old and sanctify the new. As we come to the overwhelming final sound of these high and holy days, the Tekiah Gedolah, let us hear God's voice within us. Let us hear the silent and loud voices of fellow members around us, and let us hear the cries of a world so in need of renewed hope. Whatever the loudest voice in your head, please know that Shema Kolenu, we hear you. We are here for you. We will listen. You are not alone. Shana Tova.